Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Hey, before we get started on this show, I wanted to give you a quick heads up. I invited Caroline back onto the show. We've been meaning to chat, but work and all that came up. Finally got to squeeze in an hour, and right out of the gate, we have a heck of a time. She gets we're talking about her life and this and that, and then she gets pulled over by an officer. So if we're referring to police and getting pulled over, that was earlier. I chopped all that out, but it's a fun episode. Kind of we just ramble and just go down their rabbit holes. So yeah, not my usual. Just looking for some feedback. If you like this style, give me a holler on Twitter or shoot me an email at joshboltonshow@gmail.com. I also will mention in like 5 minutes my YouTube channel. Working on that, trying to get it going. So any critiques, feedbacks, or whatever, greatly appreciated. All right, enough rambling. Let's get right into this.
Anyway, are we live streaming this part of it too?
No.
Okay.
The live streaming is when I like upload to YouTube. I do like a premiere, so then it looks like it's live. So yeah, all that I'll chop out.
By fleeing the law, apparently.
Breaking the law.
Video. Oh my gosh.
So how's your husband doing?
He's doing pretty well. I saw him this last weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was really good to see him. I saw him for 4 hours on Friday and 4 hours on Saturday. So
wow, that's a lot of time, actually.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks, oh, you got to see your husband. No, picture sitting in a school cafeteria at a little table with a bunch of other people with their families sitting at little tables in the school cafeteria. It's not private. So yeah, there's nothing all that exciting to read into it, except that we got to spend time together, which was really important. So
were they hecklers about holding hands?
They let you hold hands. You can hold hands during it. Yeah. You get one brief kiss and a hug at the beginning and at the end.
That's nice. Let's say I know a few people here in California that went and they have to work it out with the warden to even give a hug. I'm like, that's so weird. What are you gonna pass in a hug?
That's awful. And when it's your husband or your son, or it's like, really, I have to get permission to even have a hug? That's pretty sad.
Well, they're like, oh, you could pass contraband and it would be hard for us to see. And I'm like, how?
Well, they search them on the way in and they search them on the way out. And we have to go through scanners. Like, just what could happen? I mean, I understand that there are idiots who will sneak contraband in, but that's the whole reason why they do the strip searches and stuff like that of the inmates, is because they're supposed to be catching that. Are they saying that they're incompetent and they're not doing thorough jobs of searching people? If that's the case, I don't know. But they do, they'll let you share, like if you have a bag of chips, you can open it up. You have to split it along the seam and open it up flat so they can see what you're doing as you're eating chips. But you can't share drinks, which I can kind of understand, because somebody could spit a pill or something into a Coke bottle and you couldn't really see it. So that makes sense. And depending on who it is you'd be visiting, you might not want to be drinking after them. That's kind of a private thing. I don't like to swap saliva with many people. So
very true. Very true. So, do you have any new books planned?
Well, I have been working on some new short stories to make another short story collection. Okay. And, actually, I have a couple of different things going on. I've written some Westerns, which has been fun. Yeah. It's been fun to branch out and do something completely different from what I've been doing. And I was always kind of a fan of Louis L'Amour, and I lived out west for so many years that it's been fun to incorporate, the memories, like the visuals of being out there and like the smell of the creosote bushes and stuff like that into stories, because I've actually been there and lived there. And so that's been fun. And then I've been writing some more science fiction and paranormal stories. And the podcast has been doing pretty well, and we're really excited about it. I don't know if we had talked about the podcast much.
Oh, when we talked, you were humoring the idea, but I didn't know you committed.
Oh, yeah. We are doing it's called Into the Night Pod.
Well, I'm going to have to go find out as we're speaking.
Yeah. And Nari Kwok is the voice artist who narrates the stories, and she does a really good job. And it's just a lot of fun. So it's kind of neat to hear somebody's interpretation of your story. Because, when you write what's in your head, you hear the voices in your head as the characters are speaking. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because sometimes it's the exact same inflection that you had, and other times
So while Caroline makes her way on back, I want to do some house cleaning, mention some topics. I've been working on YouTube for this show, editing and splicing videos, trying new techniques like chopping up content, but I'm not getting a lot of interactions. Can y'all that are listening head over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, watch a video, or just something like feedback, comments, I guess. Because to be frank, I'm not getting that much feedback, so I don't know who I should be asking for to come on the show or not, what's entertaining, what's not. So if you get any value out of these series I do with people, please just rate, comment, review, share, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, it's going to, I'm knuckling down. I'm working on certain aspects. So it looks like she's coming on back now.
Hey, sorry about that.
This is all good. I was just about to shoot your text. Just lost your connection.
Yeah, I got a potential spam call and it kept beeping. I thought, I'll just get rid of that. And instead it hung up on you. So sorry about that.
It's all good.
Oops. So what was I saying?
It was fun.
Oh, the podcast.
Yeah.
So sometimes the inflection will be exactly the way I envisioned it. And other times it'll be something else that gets stressed, in a sentence. And so it's just fun to hear somebody's interpretation of your story.
It is. Because you don't fully get to control what they perceive. You get give them the general gist, but they have to run with the rest.
Yeah. And I don't ever hear what it's like until it airs.
Oh, that's interesting. So what's the cover art for it? Because there's a lot of Into the Night podcasts.
It is, it's actually my county road at night, and the sky is blue, and there is an oak tree on the right-hand side, kind of going over the road.
Got a lot of scary hands and monsters, but no trees.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know how else to describe it.
Are you on Instagram?
It's on Twitter. There's an Into the Night pod on Twitter that you can connect to. We're on Spotify, too, and a lot of other networks.
Another places I want to say, because I'm on Podcast Addict, which goes off Apple. So I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see it.
I don't know. I'll have to, I don't know. After the interview, I'll send you a
perfect. I'll listen. I will definitely listen to it.
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's definitely been fun. And Nari had narrated death fences inside the death fences. And so then
that's your second book, right? Or is that your newest one?
That was the third one. Inside the Death Fences was the third one. And that was my memoir of being a whistleblower on the prison system. And so when the pandemic happened, she said, what would you think of turning your short stories into a podcast? And the funny thing is I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good time. Let's do that. She told me just a few months ago, I didn't think you'd go for it. I wasn't sure that you would be interested. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So
yeah,
that is how the podcast started.
That's awesome. So then you just create the stories and she just reads it.
Yeah, she does the different voices, and she's gotten to where she has like different sound effects going on.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a good job.
She definitely is. Is this a craft of love for her, or there's a mutual agreement somewhere with something?
As far as what do you mean?
Is she getting paid, or is she just doing this to help you out?
Oh no, we just we split the royalties that we get because now it's monetized, and there are commercials and stuff that play, and we just split the royalties.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, we're two friends who are doing this and just having a good time with it too. I mean, we want it to be successful, but it's not very serious, strict business legalese.
Right.
It's, hey, let's do this. This will be fun.
Yeah, that's the best one, because then you're not going after each other's throats either. Like, I was expecting $2,000. You're like, we barely made $500.
Yeah. So it's just been a good thing, and she's a good motivator, because if it's been a while since I wrote something, she'll be like, hey, do you have some more stories coming up? And I'll go, oh my gosh, yes, let me get some written so that we don't run out.
So are you doing it like short stories as in like 20 minutes or less, or like 60 pages or less?
I look more at word count, because technically anything less than 10,000 words is a short story.
Okay. So yeah, you keep it under 10K then?
Yeah. I actually think my longest is somewhere around 8,000.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. I think that's about like a 2-hour read. Maybe. Might be more.
No, because I don't know. The long ones, she breaks up into different segments.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get more content, keep them hooked. Like, oh no, what's going to happen? Tune in next week and you'll find out.
Exactly. Yeah. And let me see. I've written also some like fairy tales or folk tales with a twist, where at the end you go, oh, that's what this was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've done one for Little Red Riding Hood. It's called Finding Allie Crenshaw.
Interesting. And okay.
I did one for Hansel and Gretel, and where she's an English teacher over here. She's left the old country, and she goes by Greta over here. She's an English teacher, a literature teacher. And every Tuesday she brings baked goods, because she's trying to take something that was negative and painful from her childhood and turn it into a positive for people.
Okay.
So I think that one's called The Call, because at the very end she gets a call from Hansel. And then that's when you find out it was Hansel and Gretel. And I did one about the old woman who lived in a shoe.
That's an interesting story in and of itself. So what was the spin for that?
It's that she had married the love of her life, And he came from a wealthy family, and he said, let's have lots of kids. And she's like, well, twins and even triplets run in my family. You know, is that okay? And he thought that was great. Let's have lots and lots of kids. And so they had like 26 kids, and they lived in this really funky house. But I don't say what shape it is, but it's just a really funky house. And most of it is her remembering back. She's sitting up in the attic talking to one of the dolls that her children had played with. And her husband died tragically in an accident, and his family stole all the wealth from her and left her in poverty. And so, you know, the cupboards were bare, and she would lose her temper sometimes, and she felt so bad. She would spank them all soundly and send them to bed, you know, after they had their broth. And at the very and she's so sad because her kids don't have anything to do with her, because they blame her for them going from having stuff to not having stuff. If she'd been a better person, or if she'd been this or that, and Dad's family would have liked you better, they wouldn't have done this, you know. And so she's just really lonely, and she has her little orange cat named Oscar, which I have an orange cat named Oscar. And
Okay.
I just try to put a little something in. And then at the very end, she goes outside, and this woman and her little boy come along, and the little boy wants to ask her a question. And she's like, oh, well, what's it? And he's like, old woman. And of course, his mom goes, don't call her that. And she's like, oh, I've been called many things. Don't worry about it. What would you like to know, son? And he said, old woman, why do you live in a shoe? And she goes, well, that's a very long story.
Interesting. Okay. I like it.
Well, thank you. I just try to come up with something that to keep, I don't know, writing interesting. I don't ever want writing to be drudgery for me.
Yeah. It's one of those, especially like listening to like Stephen King's memoir on writing. His approach is so brutal. He's like, just write every day, no matter what. And it's like, but that could also ruin the mood for you too.
Yeah. I don't believe in doing that, because then it starts sounding like work and drudgery. And if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I have a hard time believing that the person reading it's going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because if the spark is gone, if the spontaneity is gone, it's going to be really difficult to pass that intrigue onto your reader if you're not feeling it yourself.
Yeah.
So I never make myself write if I really don't feel like doing it. And I think that's where a lot of writers come up with their concept of writer's block. I don't think it's really writer's block. They just need a break.
That's true too. Yeah. Have you read the Save the Cat Writes a Novel book?
No, I have not.
So her whole thing is formatting the book. So like there's the 15 arcs or 15 of the major events, and then there's the major arc. And she explains it, and that's where she even says the same thing. Like writer's block is not writer's block. It's you either messed up in the beginning and you don't know what to do in the middle, or your middle's too vanilla and you have to go back to the beginning essentially. So she's like, it comes down to plotting. Terrible P word. I know you, because she calls the ones that go by their pantsers, and the methodical Stephen King's the plotters, not plotters, whatever it is. But she's like,
yeah, there's plotters and pantsers. Yeah,
there we go. And she's like, either way, you all end up in the same path.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely a seat of the pants kind of writer. I will, and I've always been this way.
Okay.
Then when it came to writing high school history papers or whatever, I have to get the beginning in my head, like the first paragraph or two, and know where I want to end up. And then from there, I just tell the story. Once I've got the beginning going, it's like, yeah, now I know how I want to approach this. And I will make titles. Like I'll have a different document with a title set up in Google Docs, and I'll get ideas for titles. And then when I'm like, you know what, I think I want to write a story, I'll go look at the titles and think, yeah, I think I'm going to write this one today. And sometimes what I'll do when I come up, like I'll come up with the titles on a separate document. And then sometimes I'll go through, and part of my writing process is if an idea hits me, but I can't write right then, and an idea hits me as to what would be a good story idea to go along with that title, I'll put 2 or 3 sentences down and maybe the main character's name.
Okay.
And then that way, when I go back to it, I haven't lost that thought. I can go, oh yeah, that's right, I was going to do this. Because sometimes it's busy, when you're working full time. And yeah, I would do credit recovery, like I said, after school 3 nights a week. And then I get home and there's my farm animals to take care of and everything. Sometimes you just don't have the energy when you're getting up at 5 o'clock the next morning to do it all again. So that way I don't lose that creative spark. It's somewhere saved.
That's good. Yeah. I've recently been doing that. Like, one of my coworkers, he's very young. So I joke with him because he watches a lot of TikTok. I was like, so I'm studying marketing and all that. I say, okay, as someone asking to be less creepy, what are your thoughts on this? And he'd tell me and all this. And so I asked him about books. Would you read a book? And he's like, I barely have attention for TikTok. How am I supposed to read a book? And I'm like, fair enough. But I said, what if the story's really good? He's like, if it translates well to the movie screen, I'll watch that. I'm like, well, the movie's like butcher half of the story though. It's like the ambiance explaining like the crickets, the cicadas going off, and then the rustle in the winds. So the movie just like bastardizes that all.
Yeah.
But that's one of them. I was telling him a story I had in my head. I said, I'm just humoring the idea. I said, I'm also humoring if I should ever put in my name or not. Is essentially like a lady works at a grocery store. Like her air quote problems is she's a procrastinator, is not really self-confident or self-assured. And she's working, and all these things happen. And essentially there's like a known kidnapper going around. But she's like, oh, that's the north part of the city. Like, it's not my problem. So a couple days go by and essentially this kidnapper takes her and she's held in the basement and all that. And he sat there and he's like, okay, I'd read that book. I'm like, really? Oh, like, but it's terrible because then like there's the whole because she doesn't have self-esteem or self-confidence or trust. Like he does terrible things. And then she somehow breaks out, but she gets kidnapped again. And he's like,
oh no.
And I'm like, and for the same reason too. And he's like, just use a pen name then. I'm like, great, thanks. That works too.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned having it go well with the script, like if it was a movie. Because I am actually I'm mailing a copy of Into the Night, my collection of science fiction and paranormal short stories, to the screenwriter who wrote a script for Death Fences. And he's interested.
So wait, he made a movie for you? Off your book?
He wrote the script. We thought we had a movie deal, but the producer found himself in legal trouble, so that didn't happen. Yeah. Oh, long story, Josh.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Oh gosh, no, it was bad. The guy strung us along for like a year and a half.
Oh,
and then it just became obvious that his life is just all over. And then I found out he'd been arrested 6 times in Charlotte, or he'd been arrested for 6 different warrants he had out on him and all this kind of stuff. And he lost a big lawsuit to this guy for cheating him out of his money for a movie and all kinds of stuff like that. So, oh yeah. If anybody's out there talking to a so-called producer named Richard Clark Jr., just move along. Do not bite. But yeah, the screenwriter, his name's Ron Chepsick, and normally he does true crime, but he likes science fiction. And so he's kind of intrigued by the idea of either writing a full-length script for a movie or shorts for
like TV.
Yeah. For some of the stories. So I'm sending that.
Oh, no, you go.
Oh, I'm just sending it off to him today. So.
Okay, cool. Keep me posted on that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. I've had some of my students read some of my short stories because I kind of figure if I'm going to make them write short stories, they need to see I'm not the 300-pound coach that tells them to run faster. When
Eat more healthy, run more. As he said there with his KFC.
Yeah, exactly. On his second bucket of thighs, And so I always try to say, okay, here's a story, or here's 2 stories or 3 stories that I wrote, so you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about setting the stage and using dialogue and not just saying one dialogue tag after the other. He said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said. Use context to make it clear to the reader who's speaking without being redundant.
And then like actions in between too.
Yeah. And so I've had quite a few kids go, this needs to be a movie. So
yeah.
So it'd be kind of funny if some of them turned out to be.
Make it your own version of Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. I'm sure if we can ever get Netflix's attention, they'll be like, sure, go for it. Here's whatever. Don't hire that Ron guy though.
No, Ron, you want to hire.
Oh, Ron's no, it's the shady one. So
Ron Chepsick is the good guy. It was Richard Clark Jr.
Don't hire Richard then.
No. Yeah, definitely. Ron's okay. He's doing projects with like the History Channel, and he has a true crime movie coming out. I forget. He has written a bunch of scripts. I can't remember which one he said it's on, but yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. So how'd you meet him?
I actually interviewed on his show.
Interesting.
Yeah, he does a true crime radio show, and called Crime Beat with Ron Chepsick.
Crime Beat. Okay.
Yeah, so he was intrigued about my husband Keith and I, and then that's how we got to talking, because he's like, man, there's a movie script in your story.
Oh yeah.
In our real life. And when people are like, how did you decide to go from writing true crime to science fiction and paranormal? I tell them that's simple, because it's a lot more fun creating monsters than telling people about the real life ones that are out there. So.
And at times the real life ones, you can't even explain how dark they are, because you don't even get to see the full magnitude of them. You create it though. You can say this is why they're so dark, kind of thing.
Exactly. Or if there's any hope in stopping their darkness.
That's true too. Yeah. You're like, oh, like Lord of the Rings, like there's Sauron, he's evil, blah, blah, blah. But inevitably, like he has to kill him, but it could be a lot in between. In real life, sometimes the bad guy just gets away with it. And you're like, well, there was no hero victory in that one.
No, those 25 unsolved serial killer deaths, have not been figured out yet. Yeah, sometimes real life doesn't come together in a 30-minute script very well.
No, it doesn't. It takes a long time, and you put a lot of effort in. By the end, you think, finally, and then the character's just killed off randomly, and you're like, damn it, I was rooting for him.
I kind of liked her. Man.
Why did life have to be so mean?
I don't know. But it can be. But I'm also not one of those people, like I know a lot of times at book signings at Barnes and Nobles, people go, oh, Nonfiction? No, I only read fiction. I don't want to think about the real world. Well, that's kind of stupid too, if you ask me, because you better be aware of what's going on in the real world. And I think that having a grasp of what happens in real life and not having I'm not a negative person, but I also don't walk around as a Pollyanna either. I think that adds a lot of authenticity to my fiction writing.
Right.
Because it's real, even the things that are supernatural or whatever, people's reactions can be real. And it can be similar to something that somebody went through in real life, not necessarily, demon possession or something, but, there should be something in there that the School of Hard Knocks people can relate to.
Yeah. Even if you go on a symbolic level with like the Bible and all that, there are still references to ghosts, but they more just call them like spirits, if anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is even referenced in the oldest, the oldest book recorded would be what, the Hindu religion one?
I think so. Yeah.
And then it's like Buddhism, then Christianity. So it's like they, in all of them, they reference spirits and monsters that are unseen to the naked eye. So it's like, it's probably there.
Yeah. It talks about Jesus casting demons out of people.
Yeah.
And yet so many people today want to believe, oh, well, there's heaven and then there's hell. And
there's nothing in between.
We just go to the grocery store and watch Netflix in between without realizing that those things all still exist that were talked about before.
It hasn't changed.
No. And this is kind of the battleground of where all that stuff takes place. But people, I think it makes people uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. I went to a local herb shop. Speaking of which, I probably need to show up again. But this one lady was super Christian, nothing wrong against it, but it was just like everything in the conversation turned back to God. Mm-hmm. So there was no way to grow in the conversation. It's just oh, Jesus would say this. Cool. But now that's one of those, she got talking about spirits because the old lady's shop, it's rickety and shelves are not the best. And one of them kind of fell over and some herb medicine fell off the shelf. And she's like, oh my God, demons and ghosts and blah, blah, blah. And I sat there and I'm like, or it could just be a little invisible gremlin or Oni or gravity,
poor workmanship,
And it was just one of those. Then she got talking about, it was you can't associate with ghosts and demons. That's terrible. And I'm like, and the lady knew me at this point, my personality. I'm just now catching on, so I'm fixing it. I turned, I'm like, wait, you're telling me there's no such thing as a ghost at all? No, when you die, it's done. She's like, yeah. I'm like, let's have a metaphysical conversation about this. I said, what if your spirit is your brain, your subconscious, the energy in your brain, and that is your spirit? Energy cannot be destroyed. It can either be displaced or displaced or transferred somewhere else. It can never be fully
converted.
Right. So if energy can't be displaced, it can't be converted, it is displaced. Where does the displacement go? And she kind of sat there and I'm like, well, it is the closest thing is here. We can't see electricity, but we enjoy all the properties of electricity. And we don't want to stick our fingers in an electrical hole to figure that out. What's the difference between a spirit? And she sat there, she freaked out so hard. I'm like, and I just told him ghosts are just a collection of energy, essentially. That's it.
And in a sense, even right now, we're just a collection of energy.
We are too. Yeah. Well, I just had to simplify it for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause right now energy is what keeps us going.
Exactly. Yeah. Once the energy wears out it's time for us to move on.
Yeah.
But
I think people have a hard time talking about things that are scary or make them uncomfortable. It's the whole fight or flight thing. They would rather avoid the topic altogether if possible. Or some people want to adamantly argue that it's not possible. Why?
Yeah. It's like, why is your mind so close to it then?
Yeah.
Because if like a reverse psychology, you're so close because you kind of have an inkling it could be true, but you don't want to find out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so. It's, I don't know. I truly believe that something happens. Like you don't just disappear whenever you die. I think that we don't have a very good grasp here on Earth as to what that is that happens. Mm-hmm. And I think one of mankind's greatest downfalls is in the Bible. It says God created man in his own image. But ever since man began, we've been trying to create God in our image. We want God to be what we find acceptable for God to be. And what exceptions he would make, which ones he would shoot you down with a lightning bolt for. We use God as a weapon when really none of us understand what God is or what happens after we die. None of us know.
No, none of us know. And the crazy part, I heard it on Joe Rogan. He has like YouTube shorts saying how this agnostic monk was reviewing the Dead Sea Scrolls and essentially came to the conclusion that Christianity boils down to essentially people tripping on shrooms and reproduction, sexual rituals.
I have heard him. Yeah, that one. I've heard that one.
And I was just sitting there and I was like, yeah, I mean, if you're tripping on shrooms hard enough, those angels would make sense then.
Well, and he's also talked about the burning bush. What it really is that it's that acacia tree or whatever that you get that one hallucinogen out of. And that was what opened up Moses's mind or whatever. Yeah, he's got some interesting takes on what goes on. He also talks about, I forget what it's called, but there's some kind of he has taken from time to time that supposedly lets him talk to other beings that we don't know.
Oh, so the only one I could think of is DMT or...
DMT, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you take enough of that, because it's supposed to be the chemical that pretty much simulates when you're about to die without actually dying.
Which then I don't understand why, if he can see it then when his brain thinks it's near death, why he will also be so antagonistic towards the concept of God. Because I've heard him say some fairly...
Are we talking about the monk or Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And I've heard him... No, I don't know who the monk is. I've missed his podcast. But Joe Rogan will talk about, how skeptical he is of it. He's not really religious or anything like that.
I think it's more towards organized religion. Kind of like what we're talking about, where they're using it to control people to their means instead of like...
Which is true. And, like Keith says, whenever people are going, oh, God this and God that, and he's like, well, you know what? All I can tell you is that God knows everything about me, and I know basically nothing about him.
Yes, it is the most awkward relationship there is.
Exactly. Way worse than Santa catching you being naughty,
Right. But yeah, and I can kind of see this is where, like, for me, I've had some bad experiences in the church. Nothing like Catholic church bad, but it's like
you'd like to clarify you were never
not Catholic church bad. I feel for those people, but No, it was just like this female pastor came up and just pretty much looked at me. Was very overweight at a younger age. And she's like, "Oh, you're fat. God doesn't like fat people. If you're fat, you're going to hell. So you should lose some weight for God so you can go to heaven." And I just looked at her at a young age, like 6 or 9 area. And I said, "Well, if that's your God, I don't want him."
And it's horrible. When my brother was dying, he had cancer. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to Barnes Jewish Hospital up in St. Louis. And I mean, it's for all faiths. It's not just a Jewish, but that's just the name of it. And so I was really torn up, and things had been like very bad between my brother and me. He had disowned me because of Keith, because we don't associate with people who are in prison, and we don't associate with people who do. And he wouldn't bend on it. So finally I was just like, well, then I guess we don't associate anymore, because I'm not tossing Keith aside just because you're being this way. Mm-hmm. So I went to see him as he was dying for those last couple of days. And there was a Catholic priest there, and he was from some foreign country. I have no idea, but he spoke with a heavy accent and everything. Yeah. And this guy was just terrible. I mean, he was traumatizing. I tried to talk to him, and I was upset, and I was, he's like, well, where's the rest of your family? And I'm like, well, my brother's not talking to my sister anymore either. And she didn't come up. And, and he looks at me and he goes, you have a terrible family.
I can kind of see where he was going for, but that was a terrible execution of it.
Yeah, the execution, no, and he's sitting there just smiling at me, smiling as if everything I'm saying is funny. And then he tells me, I have a terrible family. And I'm like, really? That's not what I wanted to talk to you about.
Right.
I wanted to, could you pray with me, And I actually ended up, there was another family down the hall that had their own personal family priest that was there. And as they were walking out, I tapped the priest on the arm and I said, if you can, once you're done talking with them, could you come talk to me? Because I really need to. And he did. He came back and he prayed. And I mean, I can't even remember all the stuff that happened with that first guy, but it was so bad that I went to the hospital administrator about it. Oh. It was, because it was bad. And I'm not, the Karen, where's your manager kind of person.
Right.
But I was like, okay, no other family should ever go through what was just said to me.
Right.
All the nurses were appalled. They were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that to you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was just one of the things he said. I can't remember everything, but
yeah, you blanked it out.
Yeah, thankfully. It was one of those trauma experiences.
That's interesting. So did you and your brother at least talk before he passed? Or was it just kind of still cold shoulder?
Well, no, it was interesting because his wife wouldn't want me in to see him for the first day and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a piece of work, it turns out. And so one of his friends from DC had come in to be there too. And Glenn knew that I was really upset and I wanted to see my brother. And so he said, let me see what I can do about this. Oh, she was really mad about this, but because she was like, he can't hear your voice in the hallway and you can't be within eye shot. You can stand.
Okay, gaslighter, manipulator.
Oh, she was awful. And so Glenn asked him, he had me stand in the doorway so I could see what the response was. And he said, what would you say if Caroline wanted to tell you that she loves you? Is that okay? And my brother nodded up and down because he was intubated, so he couldn't talk.
Right.
And so then Glenn said, well, how about if she was here and wanted to see you and tell you that? Would you like that? And he literally lifted off the bed, nodding his head yes. Oh. Well, she was mad as a wet hen. And so I was able to go in and talk with him and hold his hand and tell him that, I love him. I've always loved him. I always will love him. That he's my brother. And I said, I'm not going to talk about this much because I know it's been upsetting for you. And I know that you haven't been happy about me being with Keith. I said, but I want you to know that he's good to me and he really loves me. And I said, in the end, isn't that really all that matters, is that we know that we've had people who were good to us and loved us. And he looked at me like, yeah.
Kind of like perplexed, but then like, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But he also looked at me when I first went in there like, I can't believe this because I wouldn't have done this for her. So, yeah. But yeah, that was a traumatic experience because I didn't find out until a few days before he died that he was even sick.
Oh, good. Yeah, because his wife wouldn't tell you anything, huh?
My son actually called and told me because she called him. And I knew something was wrong because he called me in the middle of class.
And he never does that?
No, he knows not to call, when I'm at work. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's not an easy one to send a text message. Yeah, by the way, Mom, your brother's dying.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on life support right now, Mom. That was difficult, but I'm not exactly sure how we got off on that one.
I don't either, but I like it.
Bad Catholic priest experiences, I guess.
Probably.
Keith had a cellmate not that long ago who was a Catholic priest, former Catholic priest.
Okay.
Who is in prison for, guess what?
Doing the thingy?
In multiple states. And
that's the crazy thing. As I've looked into the Catholic Church, when they get caught red-handed, instead of just admitting defeat and getting rid of the person, they just move him somewhere else. Yeah. Knowing he's still a problem.
Diocese. Yep.
Yeah.
And his explanation was, well, my past caught up to me. No, I did terrible things and I feel horrible for that. Just my past caught up with me.
What past then?
Having sex with little boys.
Okay. I was like, when he was a kid, what kind of past?
No, he was talking about all the years because he's an old man. He's in his 70s.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. So he's done this for decades. You know what the real kicker is? He still gets his pension.
Of course. Because why wouldn't they?
Yeah, why wouldn't they send money to a guy who is a pedophile?
Of course.
And he only got 10 years.
See, this is my question. How long did that old man last? Because I know in general, the prison system, if they know you've done that, they hunt you out quick.
Well, long story.
Did he get killed at least?
No, because
they moved him to isolation.
No, the prison where Keith is predominantly sex offenders. And so we had our reasons for him going there, mainly because we were tired of all the He-Man gangster, bullshit going on at the other prisons. And there aren't too many He-Man gangster pedophiles. And we figured it would be a nice, safe place for Keith to serve the last 4 or 5 years of his sentence for robbing banks, and it has been. It's been a whole lot smoother there. But in the wing that Keith is in, there's only 3 people total that aren't in for a sex offense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see where then you don't get the He-Man guys going like, oh, you diddle little children, we kill you now. You got to think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, our concern was just, the guys who get really aggressive about phone time, who want to be phone hogs, and you can never get a call because they and all their homeboys, try to strong arm everybody else and run the wing and it's just a bunch of BS that you don't want to have to deal with.
Right. Like
prison's bad enough. Being separated from your loved ones is enough. You don't need to worry about hot-headed punks, and there just aren't too many of those.
No.
And it's kind of funny because sometimes there'll be people who will, guys will say, oh, if I find out so-and-so's a sex offender, I'm going to kick their ass and all this kind of stuff. And Keith's like, okay, here's a guy's name. Look him up, see what he's in for. So I go to the DOC website. What do you know? He's in for pedophilia himself. He's just trying to make himself sound like he's not.
Yeah, it's red herring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've gotten to where we can pick him out pretty well. Like, buddy, you're protesting too much.
It's like I had an ex, and then for like the whole time we were dating, she said, "You're cheating on me. You're cheating on me." And I'm like, "You're saying that way too many times. I think you're cheating on me."
And she probably was.
Oh, she was. It was with her ex, and she drove like 4 hours one way for something half the size of this. And I was just like, what? No
accounting for,
I was just like, does that even enter? Yeah, but that was my clear tell. If someone keeps repeating something adamantly, they probably are doing it.
Yeah, Keith, he doesn't even talk about what he's in for. Some guys like to talk about their cases all the time because, of course, they got railroaded or, they didn't do it or whatever. I know I was standing in line to visit him a couple of visits ago. And this one lady goes, yeah, she was talking about having to stand in line and like some kind of requirement that they had about visiting. And she goes, yeah, especially when you're in here for something you didn't do. And a bunch of the women are like, oh, yeah. And I looked at him in front of everybody and I said, well, my husband's in here for something he definitely did do. And they looked at me and I said, he robbed 12 banks. He did it. That's what he's in here for. So I said, we don't even worry about that.
Right. It's like the system's unjust or whatever. It's like, apparently you didn't even have a good lawyer. Or you didn't have a good case or both.
Well, yeah. Or you actually did it. And yeah, if he raped somebody, if your guy raped somebody or a little kid or something like that, he should be in here. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm just curious. One thing I was thinking about, because you said he's got like 4 to 6 years left.
Well, that was when he first went to the prison he's at. Now he has 3 to 6 years. 3 years, in 3 years will be his earliest possible parole date. And 6 years would be if he had to do the entire 20 years. But he's never had a violation or anything. So
yeah, probably the 3 years.
Hopefully the 3 years.
The system actually works and they don't frame him for something he didn't do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, he's just trying to do his time and get to come home.
So I'm just curious. You probably already know the answer. Did he lose his ability to trade options and all that for what he did?
I'm not sure, but I can always have an account.
I know who to send my money to.
Okay.
When he gets out, he'll be like, all right.
I have Venmo
now. Because I was looking him up. I'm like, man, he was a brilliant option trader. And I was like, oh my God, I'd just love to pick his brain. How he saw it kind of thing. That's it. It's just make it in your name. Like, all right, hon, you will become a billionaire and I'll just do this for fun.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a very smart guy. He really is. And, he admits that he used his intelligence in the wrong way now. But, when you're desperate and you don't want your kids to be homeless, people will.
And if he's definitely like the personality type, I think he is. He's like the analyzer, the architect. Once he knows the construct, he can just work within it freely.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That is definitely the way he is. He's definitely the bean counter and the organized one. We're kind of like the odd couple because
you're the one everywhere.
Oh yeah. I am not for example, I had to go out and buy a new hammer the other day because I can't find where I put the other one that I just bought. So somewhere I have 2 hammers now. So
Devil's hammer time. What do you find out?
Yeah.
It's the same for me. I have like a business card I bought from this one kid. He's a young entrepreneur. So I was like, oh, I'll help you out kind of thing. And I'm sitting here going, where the hell is it? Should I buy a narrow one?
Yeah, that's me. Pretty sad, but
it's classic ADHD. It's nothing to be sad about.
Maybe that is what it is.
Oh, it is. It is total classic ADHD. We get short-circuited. That's why we're super creative, by the way. And we could just create a quick 8,000 word story on the fly because our brains just move. Like for me, I've learned to control it better because I used to be bad too. I'd have my phone, put it down, forget it's there. Couldn't find my phone. I'll just go buy a new phone.
Yeah. Well, do you know why I had 2 doctor's appointments today?
Because you forgot about one?
No, because one was my schedule, just annual, go in, get your blood done, see how your cholesterol is, that kind of stuff, right? Okay. The other one that they let me in at 8:00 this morning was for the eye doctor because I had put off going to the eye doctor for 5 or 6 years.
I would say I'm at the 5 or 6 year point too.
And the other day, I came home and I always, check all my little bunnies because I have a bunch of babies right now.
Right.
And I checked Belle's litter and 3 of them were missing. And I'm like, what? And they were only a week old, like itty bitty bunnies, right? Well, turned out they were on the other side of the fence. They had wiggled and hopped over to the other side of the fence on the embankment that goes down to my dirt road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've got a bad knee and I'm not supposed to be climbing up embankments, but I had to go get the bunnies, right?
Right.
And of course, they were all 3 in different spots. So I am going through this Amazon rainforest of trees and brush and rose bushes. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, got scratched all up. I have a scratch on the side of my head right now, too. And I had my glasses flipped up on my head because I only need them for distance, right?
Right.
So I had them flipped up so I could see the bunnies on the ground. They're somewhere in the brush. Yeah. So I don't have glasses right now. And I went to the eye doctor this morning and it'll be a week and a half before I get my new glasses.
It'd be funny if you find it like 2 days before they're shipped.
Well, I have a feeling that once I get the new glasses, because the old frames were one of those colors that, like, even if it was sitting on the wooden dresser, it kind of blended in if you didn't have your glasses on to see it.
I had a lanyard like that. Like it was a white one. And anything that's white, it just, everything disappears.
Disappears, yeah. And so as soon as I get my glasses and can see better, I'll probably find the old pair out there in the brush. But right now I can't distinguish it. So, but yeah, usually my glasses or my keys, I put in one, when I'm done for the day, I put them in one of the little dresser drawers so that I always know that's where I need to look for my keys or my glasses, because otherwise they're gone. And I'm constantly losing my phone. And yeah, I mean, not to the point where I had to buy a new one, Josh.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's also when Josh had way too much money and didn't know what to do with it.
I'd like to meet that, Josh.
Me too. I wish I had that money again. Be like, you dumbass, don't do that.
Yeah. So, well, actually kind of makes me feel better to hear that I have a label now that I'm ADHD, so that I feel a little better about being so scattered.
I was going to say, here's the clear tell when everything's going crazy in your classroom. The one kid's going crazy in the corner, another one's doing something stupid with the lamp, another's tapping. Can you track all three events at once?
Yes.
Or do you have to focus on one? See, that's the key thing of ADHD. It's a huge benefit is because you can track each one. A normal lay person, non-ADHD would not be able to do it. They can only focus on one. So
really? No, and I also have made, like, it's just ingrained in me now that I kind of take a visual inventory of my kids to see where everybody seems to be. Like, does one seem really keyed up coming in the door? Another one looks like they're mad. Another one looks like they're sad. Another one looks this or that, or, like they've lost stuff. Just kind of do a visual inventory so I understand what my classroom landscape is going to be that hour.
That's another talent that is with ADHD. It's not like we're total like telepathic empaths, but we can read a room quickly and tell if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
Like, there are times like I've gone to a few parties with my friends and they've asked me, they're like, Josh, what do you think about the energy of the room? We haven't even entered. I'm like, I'm not liking it. It doesn't seem good. So they're like, all right, Josh has spoken, and we all walk off, and then so-and-so gets a call later from the host. It's like, oh my God, like at this time, 5 minutes after I said it, this idiot just ran around with a knife and tried to kill everyone.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's not a party you want to be at.
And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just felt like bad energy in the corner. There's no explaining that part.
Wrong kind of dinner party. Like that's what,
Yeah, we went like to a bowling alley or something, and that's when he got the call. It was mid swing for him, so he paused. And he's like, Josh, we got to figure out how to make money off that talent.
Well, I went to, this is when my oldest was stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base. Kid who loves to be seen with mom, where my youngest would rather really I didn't socialize with anybody that he knows, right?
Right.
Well, so Rick and we went out. It's a college town close to Whiteman, and we went to Pine Street where all the bars and everything are. And he's so funny because he's like, oh, hey, Sergeant, this is my mom, And so he had too much to drink, and we had gone upstairs to play pool with a couple of people he knew. And when we were on the stairs, I'm like, man, these stairs are dangerous. Somebody is going to fall and break a leg on these stairs someday, right? Mm-hmm. So we end up leaving. We drive to the hotel that we were going to stay at.
Right.
Excuse me, my allergies are so bad. And it was when we pulled into the hotel that I was like, I don't have my purse anymore. This is at 2:00 in the morning, right? I'm like, oh no, I don't have my purse. I left it upstairs where the pool table was. So I drive all the way back there. My son's in the car with me. And as we get to Pine Street, the street is lit up with emergency vehicles. And
someone broke their leg on the stairs.
Yes. I go to the bar. The cop wouldn't let me go up. I'm like, how do I get my purse? So he suggested I use the service elevator with a staff member. Sure enough, there it was. Thank goodness all the cops were there, because that probably deterred anybody from taking my purse. And so I came down the service elevator. As I'm walking out, I show him my purse. I'm like, by the way, what happened here? And he goes, oh, some guy fell and broke his leg on the stairs. And I was like, holy crap. I just said that was going to happen. I must have manifested it for some poor schmuck.
Maybe, but also it's just like as creative as we are, we're good at seeing patterns. So you saw something was unstable about the stairs. You couldn't, that's where you're like, I think someone's going to break their leg on this.
Yeah, because they were narrow and steep, and like an adult foot was bigger than what the steps were. You know what I mean? It would be so easy for your arch to hit the edge of a step or something and you go down.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is a bad design right here, especially for people who've been drinking.
I was going to say, or it could have been designed by a drunk guy.
It's true.
It looks about right.
They said 6 inches, right? Not,
Six. What was supposed to be 12? We'll cut it in half. We'll save some money for beer.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Oh, gosh. Well, no, I actually feel a little bit better now. Thank you for this therapy session.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, because now I'm like, okay.
It's a superpower. It's not a curse.
That's right. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna look for a cape. I think that would be awesome.
Ooh, if you find one, tell me where you get it so I can get one.
I should. Superpowers. What do we put? We can't have an S because that's Superman.
Which used to be the acronym, the ADHD, and a little diamond.
Oh yeah, ADHD. Yeah, I like that. I think we're on to something, Josh.
We are.
Now somebody who's listening to this is going to go out and market it and make a bunch of money off of our idea. But I would like to say that we came up with it first.
We were the originals.
We were.
Just give 10% profits to like a nonprofit that gives kids water or something.
Yeah.
We'll be okay with that.
And the other 90% to us. That way we're charitable and profitable all at the same time.
The IRS likes that.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the sake of the IRS, this conversation never took place.
Oh, God, no. This is purely comedic and entertainment purposes only.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one thing. One of my guests came on and he was telling me like off air. He's like, careful what you say on air because the IRS will listen to all your shows and find something. I'm like, oh, I said, well, if I ever see a random 300 episode download, I know it's the IRS then.
Oh, somehow I don't think we're going to get rich off of ADHD capes.
There's a lady who makes a killing off coaching people for ADHD.
Really?
An absolute killing. My joke during the interview was like, how do you keep them organized enough to pay you though?
I think that's probably it. And like, if it just doesn't seem like it matters to me, some people are so OCD that if there's clutter or something, they just can't stand it. Me, I'm kind of like, if it's not stopping me from doing what I need to do, it's not that bad. And I already know where everything is, except for my hammer that I'm missing.
Right. That's the missing equation. No, like my instructor tells me the same thing. He's seen my videos with this and he's like, that's sheer chaos, this and that. I'm like, dude, I know what everything means though. I'm like, there's ropes there and there's more ropes behind that. There's fish filter kind of thing. That's my camping hammock. I'm like, I know where everything's supposed to be. I can literally
Go ahead.
No. I was just like, I could just walk in my sleep, pick it up and hand it to you and go back to sleep.
Exactly. Well, the worst thing that can happen to me when I'm teaching is if I have a substitute and they decide to help me and clean my desk.
I hate that. Oh my gosh. I have a coworker at my current site. I won't say where I work, but because I can get in trouble. He gets OCD and it's super annoying because he thinks he's helping me and it's cute, but it's like I had my there for a reason.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. For example, do you ever just like not admit that something is missing because you're like, holy crap, I hope it shows up? Well,
I used to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had that going on this year because about midway through the year, I had a sub and she did that. She reorganized my entire desk and even put things that I'd had on this stand over here on my desk and moved stuff. I came back in and I'm like, what happened? Well, a few days later, I realized that the Chromebook that the district checked out to me had been on my desk and it was no longer on my desk.
Was it in your shelves or was it on like a thing in the pack?
I looked all over, could not find it. Well, I didn't really want to admit that I'd lost the Chromebook.
I think I would have mentioned something after 3 weeks if I couldn't find it. Be like, hey, boss.
Oh, no. This went on for a while because I think, I need to talk to Butch about that, who's our IT guy. But then I get busy, the bell would ring and another group of kids would come in. And so it's like, I'll do it some other time. So at the end of the school year, I asked Butch, did somebody turn this in? And he's like, no, they haven't. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. And so first hour, I was like, do you guys, because they were juniors and seniors, do you remember when that sub reorganized my whole desk? They're like, oh, yeah, that's bad. I said, well, ever since then, I haven't been able to find the Chromebook that Butch checked out to me. And one of my senior boys who sat in the corner, there was one of those old-fashioned student desks, that has like the little cubby in it.
Yeah.
And it said, or my student, he said, whoa, he said, what's this? She had stuck it in that cubby that faced the opposite direction.
As I was thinking of, like, did she put it on a shelf or something that wasn't on the table, thinking it would help?
Yeah, I guess she thought it would help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. And the kid said, well, it's been there for months. I wondered whose it was.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens to me every so often. But I now joke with my crew. They're like, Josh, why are you doing this? I'm like, oh, well, someone decided to move it on me and I don't know where it is. I'm no mind reader either, so.
Yeah. Well, and I wasn't using it for anything, so it wasn't impacting whether I could do my job.
Right.
So that made a difference too. If it was impacting my job, I instantaneously would have gone on the alert looking for it. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, crumb, flip it. Maybe there's a laptop under it.
Exactly. Just funny, the janitor missed could be there.
Is your janitor any good? Is he is he on it?
Oh yeah, we had a great staff. We did. Well, actually, okay, the one that we had during the day this year was a former student of mine from there.
Interesting. Okay.
And I told him at the end of the year, because he was leaving at the end of the year, and I told him that he had made the year a whole lot easier because the guy who was the custodian and maintenance guy before, I graduated with his wife. He graduated with my brother.
Okay.
And he died of COVID last summer. And he was just one of the nicest guys you would ever meet. And I told Ryan, I said, it was really hard losing David, but it made it a little better having it be him who was there in his place. Mm-hmm. And poor kid, he's like 20 and he got tears in his eyes too. We were both kind of misty-eyed, but he's like, thank you.
I gotta be mad. I can't show my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was a really hard time. I felt bad. I lost 2 friends the same week from COVID.
So last year around this time?
Yeah. David died July 30th and it was like August
that's when
3rd.
Omicron was starting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the son-in-law of my neighbors from when I grew up, so I've known the family literally my entire life. Mm-hmm. He died first week of August.
Yeah, that was tail end of the Omicron, like peak. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he had it and then he had a massive heart attack because of the stress on his body and he just didn't pull back through. So it was really sad. And I just had a guy that I've known. He graduated the year after me. So we've known each other pretty much all of our lives too. And he had COVID and was in the hospital for 54, 56 days, something like that, died twice.
Damn.
Yeah. And
that's going to be an expensive bill.
Rehab. And he had just gone in for his annual, and they said that he had posted that they said he had long haul COVID because he still had weakness on his right side. He had shortness of breath, and this, that, and the other thing. And then on the 1st, he died.
1st of
July.
Okay.
Just a few days ago.
I thought it was going to be April. That is a terrible April Fool's joke.
Yeah, no, this was the 1st of July, John died. So, and I think it's because COVID, had just worn his body down.
Oh, absolutely. That's where the whole pre-existing conditions thing, it was more like your bodies are already kind of compromised. It might not be able to fight this. Because my martial arts instructor I go to, I'm going to see him tomorrow. He's adamant COVID is not as bad as it seems. I'm like, well, what about all those deaths and people in the hospital that are in comas? Fake news. I'm like, all right.
A doctor that I used to have when I lived someplace else, he was younger than me. He was athletic. He worked out, was healthy. And he caught COVID before they had a vaccine. And they tried for months, like 5 months, to keep him alive. And
he knew special knowledge, right? He had like a specialty in whatever.
Well, he was just a regular family practice doctor.
Okay.
But his fiance, who was one of his nurses, was advocating for him and trying to, not letting him pull the plug, and until it just got to the point that he just didn't make it. And it's like, man, here's some guy who's younger than me, who's athletic, who's health conscious, and he died.
Oh, and as I've looked up different like random stories, like the oldest people who've lived, they live the most unhealthiest life ever. Like this one lady drinks a bottle of Jaeger every day, at least a pack and a half of cigarettes, and she just eats her pork rinds and whatever. And she's like 120. And I'm sitting here, and I'm like, is this the longevity? Is just be happy and joyful with what you're doing? Because she is beyond the moon happy.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know what the secret is.
Yeah, because that was just one of those.
They say only the good die young, so sometimes it's not the good people. My mom always said that, when people are like, well, I hope I don't, grow up to be a grumpy old man or whatever. My mom always said grumpy old men were grumpy young men. They just lost their filter. They already had those thoughts their whole life. They just don't care, and they just say whatever's on their mind.
I think I'll be just the crazy old man, because as a young kid, I didn't have a filter, but I did stupid shit. I would just be like, "Oh, there's a tree. I'm gonna climb that." Fall off it. Be a 9-year-old like, "Oh, my hips. I'm fine. Give me some penicillin. I'll be okay."
One year when the boys were young, because they're less than 2 years apart, for like 9 weeks straight, without fail, I had to take one of them to urgent care every weekend, because they would have a football accident, or they would get hurt on their inline skates, or just one thing after another. Kevin ran into a pole. It was getting dark and went to catch a football, and he had his hand up like this, and he caught the ball, and just as he turned, he ran into a light post. So all kinds of fun things. He shut his thumb in the house door and squished it. Oh, yeah.
The worst I've done, at least, well, I can remember, is I was.
How much Jaeger do you drink a day?
I don't drink that much actually anymore. I used to drink a lot. but I've watched this one YouTube video of like drilling a coin and then you melt it and bend it out to make a ring. I'm like, I can do that. I have a drill and drill bits. Little caveat in the beginning, it was a wood drill bit, and I'm trying to drill metal.
Oh no!
So I'm drilling and it's not working, and I'm holding the metal with my fingers like this. So immediately there's already a nerve problem. It bounces, the bit breaks, and drills right through my thumb.
Oh my gosh!
And it was just one of those, like my dad got home from lunch. I backed that thing out, it's spraying everywhere, and my dad's like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I tried to make a coin ring." But apparently, I did like blood just spraying like Monty Python everywhere. Apparently, it was a bad idea.
Oh my gosh!
I was totally in shock, so I cleaned myself up really good, and then I bandaged duct tape and cotton balls my thumb, drove to urgent care, and they admitted me immediately. And the doctor was just like, "Your thumb's great. It's clean. Like it's actually amazingly clean. How'd you do it?" I'm like, "I dipped in hydrogen peroxide as I was driving here and just left it in the cup." And he's like, "You're not supposed to do that." I'm like, "Well, you said it was amazingly clean." But
yeah, but now you've what's that cauterized? You've cauterized on your little tissue.
Much it wouldn't bleed. And so he's like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "Can I just use your X-ray to see if I actually drilled my bone? If I need to we need to get a brace for it or not?" He's like, "Sure." You made my life easier. Just go get your X-ray. Come back, and he's like, "You missed it by a hair."
Oh my gosh.
He's like, "It's almost like divine intervention. You were like a millimeter away from hitting your bone." I'm like, "Heck yeah." All right, doc, here's for $50. I'm going to head out. But yeah, that's the craziest one, because my dad's on lunch and he's like, "I can't take you to urgent care. I get in trouble at work."
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the things that kids survive, it's pretty amazing. And it's always the little stupid things that you do,
right,
that hurt you. Because like I've been in car wrecks and not even been bruised, that the insurance guy is like, "Well, it's a good thing nobody was sitting in the passenger seat." And I'm like, I was. And they can't believe that I'm not hurt. But yet, when I worked at the prison, I threw a handball back over the fence into the...
Or like throughout your shoulder or something?
No, I tore my ACL.
What?
Yes, I didn't even fall down, but I felt it snap like a chicken bone, and excruciating pain. And I had to stand there balancing on one foot. None of the inmates could come near me to help me, because if they touched me, it was considered assault, even if they were helping. And so one guy, thank goodness, because he was like, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And I'm like, I actually don't know if I am. I said, "Could you go into the education wing and have the officer come out and help me back in the building?" Well, because he wasn't a student, he actually went out of bounds. But he went in the education wing and got help for me. But yeah.
Oh yeah, he was risking a lot doing that.
Yeah. So I appreciated that. Here's all these inmates stand there like they were under arrest with their hands up to show that they weren't touching me. They hadn't done anything to me. They weren't the ones that hurt me.
They have to survive. It's sad, but true.
Yeah. And let me see, I dislocated my jaw one time throwing a Frisbee.
How? Yeah. Would you explain that one?
Well, it was Christmas Eve, right before my son's dad and I were getting married. And we were getting married on January 12th. It was Christmas Eve. And it was in Tucson. So the weather was nice. And we went to the park and we were just tossing the Frisbee around, and he threw it, and I turned this way to grab the Frisbee, and I caught it, and all in one motion came and, threw it this way. And for some reason, when I threw it, the way my head was turned somehow or whatever,
the momentum, the force, the stop. Yeah. That's so weird.
I mean, my chin was sitting over here, and we didn't have insurance. So Carl grabbed me by the jaw and forced it back into place. Yeah, it's bothered me ever since.
Yeah.
I was 20. It felt good.
It was like I didn't have to go to the hospital. It felt good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, like, even a few weeks ago, this was about 3 weeks ago, I was up. I'd been visiting Keith. I got to my hotel. I ordered pizza. And I'm just randomly, sitting on my phone, scrolling through, chewing on a piece of pizza. And it decided to go haywire again. And it took a couple of weeks before my jaw stopped hurting. I know, it's weird.
Yeah.
We talk about all kinds of things, don't we?
We do. I'll say this has been a classic definition of ADHD. We went from prisons to Catholic priests talking shit to us to ghosts to this.
And we didn't even talk about a lot of the paranormal stuff. I'll have to come back on and talk about some of the experiences because we talked about some of them last time.
Yeah, but it wasn't all of them either.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah, it's 11:15 already here, so I think it's time for you to get going.
Okay. Yeah, I probably better because I still have to deliver the bunny that is in the backseat of my car and then go get 2 baby goats.
Baby goats.
Baby goats. I'll have to send you pictures.
Yes, please. That would be awesome. I want to get my own goats.
You should. You should. You could open a goat yoga place.
There it is.
And we could put capes on the goats.
Oh, that's our unique value. So you get your cute little goats, but they have capes with their name on it.
Exactly.
Hopefully
the
they don't eat the capes, though.
Capes, yeah.
Oh, man.
See, we can do this, Josh.
We can do it.
IRS, you didn't hear a thing.
This is only speculative.
That's right. For entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, I will shoot you a text later so you can send me some photos of the goats. That'd be awesome.
Okay, sounds good. Well, it's been great talking with you.
Absolute honor and a pleasure, too.
We will have to do this more often.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Drive safe. Don't get pulled over again.
I'll try not to. Me and my criminal mind,
You're like, all right, how can I push in the law?
I may have to turn this into a short story somehow.
Yes, you should. I was on the show with Josh Bolden and I got pulled over by a cop.
Well, I'm thinking I'd make it a paranormal or science fiction, like the cop's really an alien or something. Ooh, and he really wanted my information just so he could find out my address.
And then get you?
Exactly. If there's any orbs or anything like that I see tonight, I am doing speed dial to Josh and saying, it's on. Let's zoom this. Let's zoom this so people can see the shit that's going down.
Definitely. I'll be in. Get the message and be like, done. Let's go.
All right. You take care, all right?
Will do.
All right.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations. You're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome and see you next time.